What's causing Sarah to go from this to this? Find out next on True Yet Untrue Tales. But before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, let's get on with the show. In a quiet, upscale neighborhood in the suburbs, there was a woman named Sarah who owned a very large, very high-energy golden retriever named Max. Now, Max was a sweetheart to Sarah, but to the rest of the neighborhood, he was a total, absolute menace. He was constantly barking, digging up flower beds, and generally just being a public nuisance. And the people who disliked Max the most were Sarah's next-door neighbors, the Miller family. The Millers had this prize-winning, fluffy white show rabbit that lived in a wooden hutch in their backyard. Mr. Miller had made it very clear to Sarah that if Max ever so much as looked at that rabbit the wrong way, there would be a major problem. One Tuesday afternoon, Sarah was in her kitchen when she looked out the back window and saw Max trot up onto the porch. And right away, Sarah's heart dropped into her stomach. Hanging out of Max's mouth was the Miller's rabbit. But it wasn't the pristine white creature it usually was. It was limp, it was cold, and it was completely covered in thick, wet mud and grass. Sarah panicked. She was totally convinced that Max had finally gone too far and harmed the neighbor's prized pet. She knew that if Mr. Miller found out, there would be serious consequences and Max might be taken away. And so, in a moment of total, absolute desperation, Sarah decided she had to cover up the situation. She grabbed the lifeless rabbit, brought it inside, and took it to her bathroom. For the next hour, Sarah performed what can only be described as a bizarre and stomach-churning grooming session. She used gentle soap to wash all the mud off the figure. She used a blow-dryer on the low setting to carefully fluff its fur back to its original snowy white state. She even used a tiny comb to make sure it looked perfect. By the time she was done, the rabbit looked exactly like it had when it was alive, except for the fact that it was no longer living. Sarah waited until she saw the Millers pull out of their driveway to go run errands. She grabbed the rabbit, sprinted across the lawn, and snuck into their backyard. Her hands were shaking as she unlatched the hutch and carefully placed the rabbit back inside, posing it so it looked like it was just taking a peaceful nap in the corner. She latched the door, ran back to her house, and figured she had just managed the perfect cover-up. But later that evening, Sarah was sitting in her living room when she heard a startled scream from next door. She looked out the window and saw flashing lights. There were police cruisers parked in front of the Miller's house. She walked over and found a police officer standing near the Miller's driveway. Sarah asked, "Officer, what happened? Is everyone okay?" The officer looked at her, shook his head and said, "It's a real strange one, ma'am. We got a call about a public nuisance and a potential prowler. You see, the Miller's pet rabbit passed away of natural causes early this morning, and they buried it in a small grave in the backyard. But apparently some absolute wacko dug the thing up today, gave it a bath, blow-dried it, and then broke into their yard just to stick it back in the cage." Sarah stood there, frozen, as the realization hit her that Max hadn't harmed the rabbit at all. He had just been a very good boy and dug up his friend.